I'm Sarah Spolstra. I'm working with the IMTA with Moonshine Design, and we've been talking to a lot of our board members and people who have been involved with the IMTA. And today we're sitting down with Nate Demers. Did I say your name right, Nate?
Yeah, that's Demers. Yeah, that's
Demers.
close.
Okay. I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about yourself, and Weatherwise and how you got started in business.
Okay. Yeah, so again, my name is Nate Demers. I started Weatherwise in 2008, kind of out of necessity. I had a family business and we were a log home company, and the phone stopped ringing for new construction, but the phone was still ringing for restoration. And at the time, other members in the business didn't want to do restoration. They wanted to just stay with new construction. So I started another business, mainly focused on restoration and repair work. Mainly, the focus was also log homes. That's kind of where I've stayed. Since then we do a little bit of everything. We do some new construction as well, but I would say 80% of what we do is restoration and historic preservation stuff. So
Well, that's a good segue. Tell me about the historic preservation, because Rob mentioned that.
yeah, so out of all the repair and restoration work we do, my favorites are the old homes and lodges and structures that have been around for a long time and have a lot of history behind them. And they are a little bit different and take a little bit different care and a little bit more creativity when we're restoring or repairing those structures. So those are really our favorite ones. We like working on anything log or timber related, but the ones with some history are the most exciting to us.
And what's a project you worked on recently then that you really love?
Oh, there's so many. So in the summertime, we move from our repair work into more of our coatings and finishes. So we do a lot of blasting, a lot of sanding, and a lot of staining, caulking, chinking, that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So this summer, it's a little bit different for us. We don't really settle down. We're more nomadic, and we just travel around and do that. Wintertime is when we move into more of our structural craftsman side of the work. So, but lately, I mean, we've had a bunch of fun ones, and I think for us, the fun part is just getting to move around. Where we can be in and out of jobs pretty quick and see a lot of different places.
How long are you usually on a job then?
Summer, our average job length is probably about a week. Winter, when we have jobs that, they can be a couple months long when we get into the repair stuff. So, but sometimes they last a year.
Yeah, what kind of work do you do when it's a year-long project?
Well, like we did a big historic place in Marquette County in Michigan, and we I think we were there 4 months. We did the log replacements, and then we did the coating removal. Had layers of paint that we removed and brought it back to more of what the traditional finish on the place was when it was first built. So then we left, and then we came back the next winter, and there was a a garage that was built, and we matched
Hmm.
log siding to match the original structure. And then, when it warms up, then we do the coating. So that was actually probably longer than a year total. But a lot of times we do our structural repair in the winter and we come back and we match the finishes when it warms up. So
I think we forgot to say where you guys are based out of too.
yeah, so home for me is in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, but I would say our core area is Upper Great Lakes region, but we're willing to travel too, but mostly we stay in northern Michigan, northern Wisconsin.
Do you ever work up in Canada?
I have not gone to Canada, mainly just because I'm not sure how the taxes would work there.
Yeah, those things are
But
always changing.
yeah, we've done some conferences in Canada, but it was like volunteer or educational stuff. But as far as paid jobs, we haven't done any work in Canada.
And I see you're involved in a lot of different organizations like the Great
Mhm.
Lakes Log Crafters Association, ILBA, the IMTA. I mean, you've done a lot of different things. What has kind of driven that involvement for you?
I just want to be surrounded with other people that are passionate about what we do. And I think the best way I found in life, the best way to be around those people is to volunteer. So that's been kind of my focus is just to volunteer with as many organizations that are involved with kind of the craft that we do. And so that's kind of what's brought me to that. So Great Lakes Log Crafters, I'm on the board of the Great Lakes Log Crafters. I'm the current president of the International Log Builders Association, active member of the David Rogers Heritage Preservation Committee. Um, and then also the IMTA. I'm on the board of the IMTA, so it's a lot of extra work, but
Yeah,
it's
how do you
very
keep up with
important.
it all?
I don't know, nights and weekends.
Yeah. I've done a few volunteer boards and it is that's way more than I've ever taken on. So good job.
Thank you.
So tell me about the David Rogers Heritage Committee. I don't really know much about that.
Yeah, it's a small committee right now. David Rogers was active, a very active member in the restoration community. He passed away, but his vision was to have a heritage preservation committee that would act to educate and promote the craft. The David Rogers Heritage Preservation Committee was put together in his honor, and so now we get together fairly often, and we're in the process of writing a like best practices handbook
Hmm.
for log restoration, log and timber restoration, because right now there's really there's no reference, no unified reference on the standards for restoration. So if you ask
Mhm.
me the correct way to do something, another contractor that does the exact same thing will have a different way, the best practices. That's kind of our goal right now with the David Rogers Preservation Committee is to kind of unify that vision and the standards.
That's really cool. Is it something you'll train people on then you'll publish the book? Tell me a little
Yeah,
bit more
so
how it's like.
the publication we're working on now. Last year we had a pre-conference workshop that
Mhm.
was associated with the ILBA. Yeah, we're doing some active trainings. We don't have any on the schedule now, but that's kind of the thing is to network with other log builders and work together in the log restoration community.
I know it's a little off of our questions, but I think the historic preservation is kind of neat. So, what is best practices when it comes to log home preservation then? Like,
Yeah, so like for example, some of the different dialogues we're having is what finishes are acceptable? What's the best stain? Like that's a really hot topic for people. Like, is it oil? Is it water? Ooh, another one would be at what point is it full log replacement versus just a crown log? Because a crown log is, a face log is much easier to do. You can chip the wood back. So for example, with that, the non-written standard is if you go deeper than 40% of the diameter, then it's full replacement or blocking. But that's not published anywhere. So we're working on publishing and coming up with those standards. Another thing that's, in discussion is at what point is epoxy not an appropriate fix? Like I just had a customer, he was calling me and said, "Can't we just pour epoxy into the rot?" My response is, "Well, we're not fixing the problem." Those are all hot topics that we're trying to deal with. For example, if we have a structure that is getting damaged because of design flaw, is it acceptable to change the roof line if it's a historic structure? And so those are all kind of things we're trying to work through as a standards.
so why did you get involved with the IMTA? I mean, you have all these other things that you're doing. So,
I think that my biggest thing with the IMTA is the work that the IMTA is doing now is so important for us in the industry. Mainly, my concern was the energy standards, and if we don't get thermal mass figured out, especially as log builders, we risk not being able to build due to the energy code standards. That's where I saw the need for the IMTA and the work being done with the cubes and that just having that interest with that. But that work it's very important science, and so yeah, I guess I just was interested in that because if the building codes change, it's much harder to change them back. Our hands can be tied. So, as far as being a log crafter, I mean, I knew it was important work, and so I just wanted to be part of that.
yeah, you've been in the business 17 years now. So, how have you seen the building codes change in that time? Like,
It's kind of funny. I mean, there's still with log construction, there's still like there's been some change, but really not too much change. Like there's the ICC energy, the codes that have come around, but most building inspectors in my area have no clue that those even exist. So, like in the state of Michigan, when we get inspected, everything falls under the state of Michigan builders codes. And most of the building inspectors have no idea of some of the other standards. It's starting to change. I think where we're seeing change now is it's more like there's awareness of having contact with logs and masonry and that kind of stuff, but it really hasn't changed much at all. It's kind of more of an unregulated business as far as building goes.
I feel like some of the challenge lies in educating people that log homes are efficient. Do you ever kind of run into that when you're talking with homeowners and property management?
Sometimes, I think a lot of what we see with log homes being inefficient was not the log homes themselves, but it was the other practices that went with it, like the way the windows were finished, or a lot of the inefficiencies we'll see is you'll have a poured wall foundation, which is concrete and it's not insulated or
Mm.
we'll see cathedral ceilings that was minimal R value fiberglass with no vapor barrier, and there can be very leaky houses, and the logs get the blame, but it's really not the logs; it's the other components of the house. So that's kind of what we see more with the log homes, with the logs themselves, with proper energy sealing, whether it's gasketing and caulking or both. We can get them pretty tight on the log side, but it's really hard if they're already built to address some of the other issues, for example, the cathedral ceilings.
Yeah, it's always kind of interesting to see log rot photos, I think. A lot of it can be design stuff that has caused the rot, not necessarily that misplaced gutters and stuff like that is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
And too short
Yes.
overhangs.
Yeah, log homes can be very durable, but it's all in the design.
Hmm.
A log home can last a very long time, but if the overhangs are not sufficient or the home is placed in an environment that is like a very brutal environment. For us, example, it's one of the hardest places to maintain any home is on the shores of the Great Lakes, especially Lake Superior. I tell people that, northern Michigan, northern Wisconsin, it's a lot of our areas are polar rainforest. You get extreme amount of precipitation and humidity and temperature swings and it's cold a lot. So, and we'll get like off Lake Superior, we'll get hurricane force winds in the fall with driving rain, and then it'll be cold or frozen after that. So then we don't dry out. I would say most of the damage we see is just design flaws or, like you said, a gutter seam that broke on the backside or gutter end cap that's leaking, or a lot of times we see it splashing off the decks, water splashing off the decks because there's no gutter or flashing issues. So if those are addressed, a log home can be really durable.
Yeah, especially if you're preserving them. Like, what's the oldest log home that you've done preservation on?
Oh,
I know I'm
1850?
putting you on the spot, but
Yeah, probably 1850.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't, my area, most of the stuff is a lot of the older ones are like 1900 and 1930. There's a lot of those, but much older than that. Like all the old timber camps that were logged, those, they had sod roofs and the logs were on the ground and they weren't built for longevity. But there's some few older ones. But it's not like we're in Northern Europe or, an area where we have 500-year-old ones in our area. We don't have those.
Are there 500-year-old log homes in Europe?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, I think I've been through Wyoming and they have a log home that it's on the historic preservation list, but it still has concrete mortar in it.
yeah. We still have a lot of those.
Do you?
Yeah,
Okay.
concrete mortar.
What do you love about log and timber building?
The thing about log building for me is it's like a really close, it's a way to take something from nature and put it into a structure. The steps there's very few steps in log construction. So much the other home construction, you're separated from the earth more. Whereas log homes, when we can go out in the woods and we can, cut some trees and peel them and stack them and create a dwelling that we can live in and be comfortable in. and it's a traditional building practice. So there's a lot of history, and it's, being North America, it's part of our history and kind of how we formed America and Canada. So I don't know, I guess that's what gets me excited about it.
The history and just
Yeah.
the simplicity of like just getting out there and building it from the land, it sounds like.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that I enjoy most about restoration and renewal is that sometimes, we're able to take a structure that's having problems and alleviate those with, small tweaks in the design. And though that's very rewarding for us. And then the historic ones, there's something that's really exciting for us to like take a place and maybe do a couple repairs, and we know that, like, okay, well, that this structure can last another 100 years as long as, people are taking care of it. And so I think that's kind of exciting for me and the team and I, is like giving new life to old places, and then hoping that in the future, if when someone down the road is working on this project, maybe they'll see the marks we left in the logs. And because for us, that's super exciting to see where the people before us had worked. And I think, that's kind of our hope, is that we'll have homes that will be around for generations past what we are, and maybe leave our mark on those structures.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. Like when you preserve something, do you find something that somebody else left behind as you're restoring it? I guess like whether it's tool marks
Yeah,
or
yeah, we can see the broad axe marks, and
mhm.
now we've got chainsaw marks. And but sometimes when we do restoration, we will use traditional tools to kind of mimic what, the look that was done before us. And as builders, when we build something new, our goal is like, we want this thing, we don't want to build a structure that's going to last 50 years. We don't want to build a structure that's going to only last 100 years. Our goal as builders is to build something that's going to be around for a long time. And I think that's kind of the excitement with this, some of the writings being part of the standards, and then that dialogue with the David Rogers Heritage Preservation Committee is kind of forming the standards that will help structures and other contractors and homeowners to make the right decision. Because sometimes it's really tough to know what to do in certain situations. And so that's kind of the exciting part of being in the restoration, is trying to figure out, what's the best thing for the structure.
Yeah, how do you go about doing that then? Like how do you figure out what is best for the structure?
Sometimes we can see what's on those structures, what is working and what's not. What we find, it's like on the old ones, it's, well, a deck was placed here after the fact, and the deck, the water, the snow on the deck is causing problems. A lot of times is the roof wasn't maintained
Mm,
correctly, and it leaked in, and then we had some log rafters that were damaged. We do see a lot of moisture issues. One of the things in our area is that people overlook the fact that their crawl spaces are really moist, and that, then we get decayed floor joists and flooring systems. And, for that, it's like, for us, we try to manage the moisture not only outside attacking the house, but also inside. We do a lot of drainage work. We just looked at a house that over the last 100 years, all the leaves and the erosion from up the side of the hill had kind of washed down onto the foundation, and the dirt was now a foot higher than it was when it was built, and now that's causing problems that was overlooked for a long time.
yeah, that's easy to do. And homes seem like they need regular maintenance, kind of like your car, so that
Hmm.
they run right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.